with the government, what you have is they get their clues from Washington. And Rand Paul put it perfectly, who quit YouTube, citing censorship. He said that there is almost a religious adherence to the edicts of government. He's saying it's a religious adherence, or as though the Vatican is talking and they're the priesthood.
We wrote about that in the book.
And we wrote about that the woke culture and then the oligarchs and technology would serve the new orthodoxy coming out of Washington. It's a religion.
Yep.
And so he's calling it an exodus, taking the biblical term, from big tech. And he says this, talk about Getter and Gab and that stuff. He says, I will no longer post videos on YouTube unless it is to criticize them or announce how my viewers can find me on Rumble. So these guys are going to Rumble.
Exactly.
And he said that he saw his account suspended. This is a senator of the United States for a week, put in timeout by the millennial bureaucrats, the wokesters from Wokistan, who didn't like his, as a doctor, his comments on COVID. Do you hear the hubris and the arrogance of this new religion? So he says that they're acting like, he refers to them as the medieval church. He says this is the medieval church and it's old school Catholicism during the Dark Ages. He said your ideas are heretical if you're not doing what they approve of. You're a heretic, and therefore you have to be excommunicated.
That's exactly what we
wrote.
That's amazing.
Marjorie Taylor Greene then gets suspended on Facebook. I may have overstated this. If it's suspended on Facebook and banned on Twitter, what's the difference between a suspension and a ban? She might be able to do penance with a suspension. She might be able to get on her knees. And
oh, yeah. I would think suspension is temporary.
Okay.
Ban, I think, is probably eternal.
So kicked out of school versus suspended.
Yeah.
So she has to learn from her errors. Facebook's going to be like a bishop who's going to allow her back in for communion, provided that she confesses her sin.
Yeah.
And changes her behavior. Marjorie Taylor Greene was permanently locked out of personal Twitter account. I'm telling you what, the elegant justice of this, Joe Rogan, 40 million people heard him do his, I know, I wonder how many Malone's got, but you're hearing him go after this stuff now. And he needs to go after it with more consistency. Anyway, what I wish Rand Paul would have done is not gotten off of YouTube. I wish he wouldn't have.
Why?
It would have been far more powerful for him to pull a Mike Lindell. What Mike told us over dinner, he said that Twitter was ignoring him. So what was his name? Jack Dorsey? Is that the guy who was the CEO of Twitter? He said he should go to jail for his criminal activity with the Hunter Biden laptop suppression, suppressing the facts before the election. He should be in jail for that. Well, that was too much. They suspended his account because Mike needed something for, I guess, headlines the next day, and he got it. Twitter suspends Mike Lindell. So I think that's what Rand Paul should have done. And I think all of you listen to me. I don't care. Let this little word go out and let a bird of the air carry it into the ears of influential people. If you have a significant following, don't leave the field of battle. Embarrass your opposition by making them excommunicate you. What Rand Paul should do is push the envelope until Senator Rand Paul, meanwhile, was that he'd be a hero with youth.
Yeah.
Was just banned from YouTube.
Yeah.
And then he'd be doing sound bites on talking about how he just pushed the issue.
You wonder, let me ask you a quick question. Do you think, when the election happens and if the red wave happens and we don't have any issues with the, counting of votes this time around and we have a majority, can we investigate these companies? Can we open House
I'm so glad
committees?
you asked that. And listen, people, I didn't set her up for this. I did not set her up because she wasn't here for my last podcast because she was taking care of other issues. But here's the deal. I wanted to share this with you. Our friend, Devin Nunes, who was the guy that was the head of the Intelligence Committee, defending Trump and exposing Adam Schiffless, because of Schiffless's lies about the Russian collusion story. Here we go. Nunes shocked me. He's one of our key guys, one of our key incorruptible guys exposing the left. And he was on his way, Mercedes, to being on the powerful Ways and Means Committee. I mean, literally in charge of the priorities of the Republican takeover. He just resigned. He resigned as one of the leading congressmen, conservative patriots in Washington.
Why?
Leaving a gaping hole at the San Joaquin Valley, where he was for almost 19 or 20 years. He's like our guy here. What's his name? The judge in Texas. You know, Congressman Louis Gohmert.
Oh yeah.
But he stepped down. Why did he do that? Because he met with Donald Trump. And he is so mad about the corruption of the tech oligarchies. He sued Twitter and it was dismissed in court. He's out for vengeance, and so is Trump. So he got together with Donald Trump. Nobody knows better how to use the leverage of Washington than Devin Nunes. He's resigned from Congress to become the CEO of Trump's new company, Trump Media Technology Group. I'll tell you why. Because he's going to use he's going to pursue like a battering ram, Trump as an assault on these oligarchs. And Trump's going to blast them. And so Nunes plans to depart the House. It was a shock to anyone in Washington. But now that I see it, Nunes is going to lead the attack against the oligarchs, and he can't do it as well in Washington as he can do it unfettered, working with Trump as a media person.
Well, that's kind of like offense and defense, but I mean, he's going to do it in a secular sense. But do you think from in a government sense, when we have a majority in the House, can we investigate these companies? I mean, surely my incidents I described earlier, the things you've gone through.
Where do you think the pressure is going to come upon those committees? Kevin McCarthy's a wuss. Where do you think the pressure is going to come upon the McConnells and McCarthys to do what they have to do? Donald Trump and Nunes. He was the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He's going to go after them. He's going to expose intelligence information that should be public record that has been ignored.
But maybe I'm not understanding. You're saying he's leaving the government and he's accepted a secular position as a CEO, other than just dominating them from a, strictly corporate standpoint, trying to put your competitors out of business. That's one thing. That's what you're saying he's going to do.
Yeah, imagine like Steve Bannon has to leave the polite circles of protocol in Washington to go to Real America's Voice and create a war room. Now the gloves are off. He's up in your grill. He's coming after you, and he's letting you know it. Can't do that in Washington.
But I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. That's all. I was just thinking, like, they do all these investigations all the time into the most random things, spending millions of taxpayer dollars. I'd love to see it done.
I believe, and this is why we want this program. This is why we want you to share this. We want you to like and subscribe. We want you to watch this, like it, share it, subscribe. We got to get the message out, because we are one of the few people that actually gets the fact that we have to put pressure on the committees that are forming. The big blunder. Our problem is Kevin McCarthy. I'm worried about him. So let me give you this thing. We're running out of time. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she is now banned from Twitter, suspended from Facebook. You can't do that to politicians. You can't rob America of their duly elected representative they put in office to speak, and you silence them so they can't talk. How dare you?
Don't go anywhere. You're going to miss it. The whole podcast is over on lancewallnau.com/podcast. This is just an excerpt. Go watch the full thing. Click the link in the description. It'll take you right there.